look, I needed space buttons today. I don't really know how I feel about them. It's my first time doing them, but hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm just gonna sit down and do my makeup while Denver's taking a nap and just kind of tell you guys a little story that I have. I will link all the products below. I love Bailey Sarian's videos where she's just like telling a story and doing her makeup. Like, I love that. It just kind of feels like you're with your best friend, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna be doing that today, but I'm gonna be doing it on a personal experience, not a murder mystery. I don't really want to copy her videos. I just love the idea of them because tutorials kind of suck butt sometimes. So I will link below all of the products that I used today, and we will just jump right into the video. Oh my god, I forgot to mention, it's Vlogmas day 4 or 5. I don't really know. Not gonna lie, I'm pre-filming a lot of these videos and uploading them just to make sure I have them uploaded. So yeah, not gonna lie to you guys, okay? So this is going to be the story on how birth control almost killed me and kind of almost killed me twice. So let's just get right into it. But first I'm going to do my brows off camera because, you know, brows on camera never work. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not loving these brows today, but they're just not cooperating and I literally just spent 15 minutes on them. So you know what? Frick it. So I had very, very heavy periods, like so freaking heavy, it was ridiculous. And my cramps were so bad that they were unmanageable. Like, I took like the biggest ibuprofen you could take for them, and nothing worked for me. So I went into my doctor and he said, why don't we try birth control? And my mom had been against birth control before, but at that point we were just both kind of like, why don't I just do the pill? Like, the pill is probably the safest option. And so I went to the doctor's office and said, all right, fine, let's start me on the pill. And he said it should help regulate my periods and all that. He never checked me if I had endometriosis or PCOS or anything like that. He just went ahead and started me on birth control and did not tell me any of the side effects. I knew that I would potentially gain weight and things like that. Like, I knew all of like the basics of that, but doctors don't tell you everything that can happen with birth control. So I'm here to tell you my story to save y'all, okay? So just listen closely. Okay, yeah. So I went to the doctor's office. I started birth control January 2nd, 2018. I started it, and then a couple weeks passed by and I started getting bloody noses like crazy, and it was just not good. And I was like, I'd be driving home randomly and my nose would start bleeding. And we're like, oh, my iron's low. So I started like doing things to get like my iron percentage up, all that. Never went to the doctor because we just assumed that it was to do with my iron. So I did everything I could to get my iron up, still had bloody noses. And then it was about February, I felt some pains in my chest. And then come March, I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move, I couldn't, nothing. And I couldn't get help from my parents. I remember laying there crying, my chest hurt so bad. I like tried to bang on the wall. I had no strength, no control over my body, and it was so scary. And then I apparently must have just passed out or fell back asleep. I'm not 100% sure, but I woke up the next morning and I went and told my mom. I was like, hey, something happened. And she's like, no, you're fine. Like, nothing could have happened. Like, I think you were just dreaming it. And so I was like, yeah, you're right. I probably just dreamed it. And so I went about my day, and then my mom had this feeling. She was like, why don't I just call the doctor, get you into the doctor, and we'll see what the doctor has to say. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. We go to the doctor, and I miss this doctor greatly. This doctor literally saved my life. I cannot thank him enough. So we're sitting in the doctor's office, and he's like, do you hurt right now? And I'm like, no, I feel perfectly fine, but I know something is wrong. And he was like, you know what? I feel that something's wrong too. So he checked my D-dimer levels, however you want to say that, because he just had this gut feeling, because it was just weird. And he checked that, and my numbers were not good. I had already gone back to school that day because he's like, we're just going to run these tests, see what happens. If nothing's there, you're fine. We'll call you if we need you to come back in. And I was like, okay, cool. Because we were all like, you're perfectly healthy. I'm walking. Like, nothing's really making sense. So he checked that number, called my mom back. I literally had just gotten to school and gotten back into class. And I sat down and the teacher's phone rings. And he's like, Alexis, you needed to go to the office right now. And I was like, why? I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing today. Like, I was like, I swear to God, I did nothing today. Like, I literally just got here. He's like, you just need to go. And so I get into the office and the secretary is like, I'm so sorry, Alexis. You need to go to the hospital right now. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what? What do you mean? And I was like freaking out. I'm like, why? Is something wrong with me? She goes, your mom just called me and told me I can't tell you. You're gonna have to call your mom. Just get in your car and go to the hospital. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, okay. So I call my mom and my mom's like, it's super hard to explain over the phone, but I will meet you at the hospital. Just get there as quick as you can. And I was like, okay. I like the whole car ride to the hospital. I'm like, do I have cancer? Like, that's immediately what my mind went to. I don't know why my mind went to that, but I went to the absolute worst because my mom doesn't freak out like that. My mom is like a chill person when it comes to things. And she's like freaking out. And I'm like, okay, like that's weird. So we get to the hospital and we go straight to the CT room and they get me in right away for a CT scan with contrast. I had never gotten that before. If you don't know what that is, so you can get like a regular CT scan, but then a CT scan with contrast. The contrast will just go through your body and just kind of light everything up. And so then we went back to the doctor's room and we were just sitting in there waiting for him to come in. And he walked in and he hadn't even looked at my scans yet. And he looked at me, he goes, I have no idea how you walked into my office just fine and you're still alive right now. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, at that point, I'm like, am I supposed to be dead? Like, is this actually had went through a very deep depression and like shit hit the fan pretty hard. So like, I had finally gotten okay with myself a little bit, not fully, but I had gotten better about loving myself. And so I'm like, okay, like what the hell? So he's like, I haven't even gotten to look at your scans yet, but I have a feeling that we are going to have to either admit you here or you're going to have to go to Children's Hospital because I was under 18 at the time. And I was like, okay. So he goes back and he gets my scans and he's like, you have a pretty decent sized blood clot in this lung and you have another one in this lung. And we're like, okay, what? Like, you don't, like, when you get sick, you don't expect it. Like, it's so weird. So we went ahead and he's talking to us. He's like, I want to start you on blood thinners immediately. You will have to stay in the hospital for a couple days. We can either do it here or you can go to Children's and there's specialists for these type of things. And I looked at my mom and I said, I want to go to Children's. I want to see a specialist. I don't just want a regular doctor because we live in a small town. So the doctors aren't very much specialist and they don't deal with like kids that are young. So she was like, absolutely. And they wanted me to ride an ambulance, but my dad's an EMT. So they gave us the okay for my dad to drive us to Children's. So we hurried up, we went home, we packed a couple bags, and we were on our way to Children's after that. So we are on our way to Children's. We get there, Children is waiting for us. We step in and immediately they get me sat down, they give me an IV, they give me all that fun stuff. And then they bring a specialist in. And he also was like, you are lucky to just be like awake and feeling fine. Like, you're lucky. Like, this doesn't just happen to people and feel fine. And I'm just kind of like waiting. They're doing a bunch of tests and things, just some more tests just to be safe. And then they started me on blood thinners. And I did Levinox, which is a needle that goes in your stomach. I did do it twice a day. And so I did that twice a day. I did it for like 6 months, I believe. Something. It was about 6 months that I had to do those shots every day, 2 hours, twice a day. So then they start running more tests. I literally had doctor's appointments every single week after that because they just had to keep monitoring me. I got CT scans of contrast every single time I went, pretty much. And just to make sure that they weren't progressing, they didn't need to up my medicine. The goal was to get the medicine to go down each time, which I got lucky, and most of the time I did get to go down on my dosage. And so finally they're like doing like to see if it's a genetic thing, and no one in my family has this problem, so we're looking at it more. And then finally the doctor goes, "Were you taking birth control?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Are you still taking birth control?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." I never stopped it. And this was like when my medicine wasn't really changing much, because in the beginning my medicine didn't change much. And then he's like, "You need to stop taking that birth control right now." And because I told him like the name of it, I actually had it in my bag and I gave it to him. And he's like, "This has estrogen in it. The cause," so I could go on and on about birth control because it's just not safe. It's like the devil for your body. I don't recommend it. So he's like, "This has estrogen in it, and this is actually not the most common side effect, but it's there." And so he explained it to us. So there are pills. If you're going to get on birth control, the safest route you can go, which is still not the safest, is birth control without estrogen in it, the little pills. And he's like, "You need to like get off this right away because your body is making just too much estrogen right now." And so I'm like, okay, like cool. So I get off the birth control, and right away they could stop. Like the next appointment, they're like, "We're gonna start lowering your dosage." And I'm like, awesome. So it was working. It was great. It clearly was the birth control. It was 100% the birth control. So they then of course like get me all situated, and I go the 6 months doing all of the, oh god. So I go and I do the 6 months of these shots. They were not fun. My mom did not think I was going to be able to do it, but I kind of had this mindset when we were in the hospital that I have to do this. I have to, like I have no other choice. So I did it right away, had not really any issues with it. And we went home in a couple of days and I kept doing them. There was at one point I had a complete mental breakdown, and my dad would do my morning shot and I would do the night shot. That way I didn't have to do both. But when this happened, like your lungs are so dead. Like when we got home from the hospital, the doctor's like, "If your room is on the second story of your house, you might want to sleep downstairs because I don't think you're going to be able to do stairs." And I was like, "Oh, hell yeah, I can do stairs." So I literally tried to run up the stairs of my house, and I almost didn't make it up the stairs. Like it was a lot went into my body. My body was dead at this point. I took a couple weeks off from dance. The only medicine that I was taking was the Levinox, and then I got off of it and I started like getting better about myself. And then I went back to my OBGYN, and I was like, "My periods are still awful. I don't want to be back on birth control. I do not." And he actually got kind of snippy with me. He's like, "I have no other option to give you besides birth control. Like, that's the only option." Like, he's just yelling at me. He's like, "If you're not on birth control, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, I'm just asking for help. And he had a nurse practitioner in there, and he left the room because he's like, "I have other patients to see." Like, he was just really mad at me. And I was like, "This isn't my, like, you literally did this to me. You literally, like, did not tell me, did not check me for anything." And so his nurse practitioner was like, "I'm going to up your dosage a little bit on the ibuprofen." So I literally had the biggest pill of ibuprofen that you could take. It kind of helped manage the pain a little bit. And then my periods got super irregular. I forgot to mention that they also started me on a birth control with no estrogen in it to try and help regulate my periods, but they just became more irregular. I don't know how I forgot that, but I did. So here we go. I started gaining so much weight. I tried working out, wasn't working. I literally gained so much weight. It was disgusting to me anyway. And so I tried working out, nothing worked. So I then thought that I was pregnant because I hadn't had my period in like 2 months. So I go to the doctor, and she takes like my urine sample, whatever, and she's like, "Yeah, no, you're not pregnant." Like, this is a totally new doctor. She's like, "You're not pregnant, but I want to run some tests because this isn't right." And I'm like, "Okay." And so I talked to her, and she's like, your doctor before this should have done all of this before, like, because your period should not be this painful. You shouldn't have blood clots that big coming from your period. And so she ran a bunch of tests, and then she did an ultrasound, and we found some pretty big cyst on my ovary, so she diagnosed me with PCOS. And once you have pulmonary embolism and you're on the blood thinners, and like all the estrogen levels being out of whack, they told me right there and then, I was only 16 or 17 years old, and they're like, you're going to have a lot of trouble having kids. So I went to my new doctor, and she's like, now that you have PCOS and you have this estrogen problem, like, you're going to have struggles getting pregnant. Like, if you get pregnant, like, on your own, that's a blessing from God. And then I did. I did get pregnant shortly after that. Not planned. She just, all of a sudden, like, it just happened. I got pregnant, and my doctor was like, this is amazing. And my new OBGYN, she's phenomenal. I love her so much. And so they actually deleted from my chart, as they said it, like it wasn't in my chart anymore, about my pulmonary embolism because of my estrogen, because of birth control. They took that out of my, because I still go to the same hospital, I just switched OBGYNs. They took it out of my file, which makes no sense to me. I don't know how all that works. They said that they took it out of my file, and they didn't know this because if you've had a pulmonary embolism because of estrogen, because like the birth control fucked me up, let's just say that I should have started blood thinners right away when I got pregnant. And I didn't, because I didn't know, and it was out of my little file thing. So I actually was laying in bed one day, and it was actually the 2-year anniversary of my blood clots, and I had the exact same pain in my chest, and I just knew. I was about 2-3 months pregnant, so I was instantly panicked. I called my doctor. It actually worked out. She actually happened to be on call that day, so she called me back right away, and she's like, oh my God, like, I had no idea. Like, we need to start you on blood thinners right away, right now. I'm going to send them to the pharmacy just literally right now. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Total mental breakdown. And then when I went to the doctor, and she's like, if you felt that pain, there's easily another blood clot entered your chest. I was like, oh, okay. And so they're like, but you're pregnant, so we're not going to do any CT scans right now. Like, if we can get this under control, if you're not in pain anymore, if like you don't get the chest pains anymore, we're going to be just pretty much golden. You're going to have a high risk pregnancy anyway. I was like, cool, awesome. So not cool, awesome, but like, you know, I was like, all right, I can deal with this. This is fine. So then I started doing the blood thinner injections again, but I only had to do them once a day. And while pregnant, it freaking hurt. So again, the whole thing is the birth control did this to me. It's not just my body. It's the birth control literally fucked me up for the rest of my life. And I cannot explain enough how much I hate birth control. So yeah. So I then went through my whole pregnancy having to take these blood thinners. Great time. Loved every minute, you know. So I want to just kind of address the dangers of birth control for those of you who, I will never go on birth control again. So the birth control caused my estrogen problems, which also ended up causing my PCOS problems. PCOS is real. PCOS sucks. If you have ever had a pulmonary embolism because of birth control, I'd love to hear it. If you have PCOS, I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear how you got rid of it naturally, because I don't want to go back on the medicine again, the metformin. I had to actually take it while I was pregnant because the PCOS caused me to have gestational diabetes. If you did not know that, PCOS gives you a higher risk for gestational diabetes. You can get rid of PCOS if you're lucky. I've been fighting with it for the last 2 years now. It did come back, my period and my PCOS came back this last month. 3 months postpartum, I felt the cyst burst, and I was like, oh my God, I never thought I'd have to feel this again, and I did. So that was a hoot and hollering good time. But birth control is not safe for your body. It's literally the devil. My OBGYN now will actually agree with me on that. She also hates birth control, but she'll give it to whoever. She never judges anyone. I love her. Literally, your safest option is the pill without estrogen, and I still wouldn't recommend that just because it's just, birth control just sucks. It just sucks. Like, just be safe, sis. Just be safe. Man, I really wanted to keep this story, like, short and sweet because I didn't want to, like, not be able to do my full face. But now, like, I kept it too short and sweet. But, yeah. So, I'm going to finish this real quick, and then I'll be back. I have no fake lashes. But look who decided to join us. Yeah. Hi. Hi. So, yeah. Next time I do this, I hate this lip color, by the way, so don't look at it. But next time that I do a little story time and makeup, I'm going to plan it out a little bit better so it's not so short and sweet. You can see the whole shebang come together. But I did get my eyes done during it. Look, I did wing liner today. Ooh, who is she? She's poop. Yeah. So, yeah. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And please, 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 please be smart when it comes to birth control and knowing your body and all of that fun stuff. And again, if you have a story similar to mine or you deal with pulmonary embolism or PCOS, please comment down below or DM me on Instagram. We love you guys, even though she's being a cranky butthole. Goodbye.